Do you like books or movies or TV shows or songs with lyrics? You know, things that were created by writers. Of course you do. Do you like watching people type? I doubt it. Do you like hearing people telling you about how they come up with the things they type? Maybe. There are lots of shows like that, but this isn't one of them. Do you ever procrastinate? Writers do too. So if you've ever enjoyed a great book or film or show or song or poem, and you thought, I'll bet the woman who wrote this epic high fantasy TV series, or the guy who wrote this funny queer sci-fi novel, or the person who writes this punch you in the gut poetry would be really fun to hang out with. And I'd like to hear them confess their bad not writing habits. You're in the right not writing place. Welcome to Writers Not Writing. Today's show is the pilot, so it's just Doug, the producer, and me, Benjamin Gorman, explaining how the show will work. And we'll reveal some behind-the-scenes secrets that only special people who have watched / listened to the pilot will know. For example, at the beginning of each show, I'll talk about the conversation we're about to have, and I'll pretend like we're about to have it. But I'll mention some things we're going to talk about, and you'll wonder how I'm so amazingly prescient. But here's the secret. I will record this intro after the interview, so I'll already know what the show is about. It's like magic. Do you ever wonder how writers come up with the clever foreshadowing in a short story that hints at the big reveal later on? This is how. We often didn't know what the big reveal was going to be when we wrote the first draft, but it came to us just like it comes to you as a reader. And then we went back and we plugged in that little hint to keep you wondering or to make the second reading more satisfying. This trick is also going to allow me to come up with the magic word in each episode. And because, I'll be able to, because I will know what the magic word is going to be. Magic. So this episode's magic word is shrift. Shakespearean for confession, only Shakespeare preferred the word shrift to confession because, one syllable instead of three, a little easier for a poet, right? So I can plug that in there into the iambic pentameter more easily. So listen for shrift, and when you hear it, make a funny noise. Just, whatever is your sound that you make, but some consistent noise that, you can yelp or make fart noises or whatever, but make a noise when you hear the word. You can scream like they used to do on like Pee-wee's Big Adventure or whatever. But when you hear the magic word, you make that noise. And, as you keep coming back and listening to the show, that'll just become a habit. And every time you hear the magic word, you'll just make that noise. And then at some point, you will be listening in public. You'll be, on a bus, or you'll be in your car with somebody who doesn't know about this podcast. And you'll hear the word that you've been told to listen for, and that sound is just going to come out of you and weird that person out, and that will be great. Like, that's what we're hoping for, is a Pavlovian response that only fans will get. So that's not supposed to be an OnlyFans reference. Fans of the show. No knock on OnlyFans, folks, but this is as close as I get. This went weird all of a sudden. I was trying to do a funny thing, and now I'm like apologizing for not having an OnlyFans. Anyway, let's get on with the show. So here's the part where I'll normally introduce the guest. But of course, today we don't have one. There's a link to a form you can use to fill out if you're a writer who would like to be a guest on the show. So please fill that out if you're interested. We do have Doug, the producer. But here's another one of those little bits of behind the scenes revelation. Doug is a fictional character. I'll use Doug to blame any technical problems, but I'm going to resist the temptation to abuse Doug. Interns still ought to be treated well. They deserve to get paid. So that's why we'll have an advertisement in the podcast with ads popping up on the YouTube show. It's not for me. I'm a writer. I just need lots of caffeine and enough money to keep the house heated, and only really heated enough that my fingers don't go numb while I type. So I have very little in the way of needs, but Doug lives a very extravagant lifestyle. And here's the thing, he has 9 cats, all of whom have very specific dietary needs, right? Right, Doug? Yeah. I mean, yeah. One of his cats only eats caviar. One of them only eats lobster, right? Which is, I mean, I don't understand the kind of evolutionary part there. Why would cats have evolved to only eat fish eggs and crustaceans? That makes very little sense to me. But there's another one that only eats jalapeno poppers from Jack in the Box. And I'm gonna see if I can get Doug to Doug, will you post just an image? I know you don't like to be in front of the camera, but if you would post an image of that cat to Instagram or whatever, it's quite a cat. What's that one's name? Poops and Giggles. Yeah, poops and that's the edited version for YouTube. So I can only imagine Poops and something much worse. Oh, the Poops is the part that was edited. I took it to a really weird place there. Poops and something obscene, which, yeah, you're imagining that now, aren't you? Poops and whatever. The cat is in some kind of videos that, yep, you're going to see that every time you see your cat now. Yep, that's, yeah. Yes, the porno poop cat. So yeah, Doug, you might want to edit all that part out. I don't know if that is going to fly. Anyway, we're starting over because the mic just fell down, and I'm not sure if it's still working. Is the mic still working? We'll find out. Okay, you know what? The mic was still working, and that's going to be our first thing that we blame on Doug, despite the fact that it was entirely my fault. So Doug, that one's on you. Thanks for cleaning that up and editing it so smoothly so that, and chopping off the part about your cat that is involved in poopy pornography. Thank you for removing that. I appreciate it. We got to keep the show, kid appropriate. And so, maybe it was fortuitous that it got cut at just that point. I appreciate it. So after I introduce the guest in a flattering way like I have with Doug today, then our next segment will be, I mean, it's not a segment, it'll just be really brief, but I want to make sure that people who are listening to the podcast also know about what it is that the guest and I have chosen to wear for the occasion. So for example, the people who are on YouTube already can see this, but I thought it's a pilot. And so it would be kind of funny and clever for me to put on this pilot's hat from it's probably late 60s American Airlines. I went cosplay because it's a pilot, get it? Pilot. And I couldn't find the rest of the pilot's uniform. So that's why I wore I found this stewardess outfit. And so I've got the top and the skirt, and then I just went with fuzzy slippers because I'm at home. And so I can do fuzzy slippers here. But I did the stockings, the high stock. And did you know it was clearly an even more sexist time. And did you know that flight attendants at that time, first of all, only women, and their stockings were a mandatory part of their uniform, but they were not provided by American Airlines. Did you know that? I did not know that because I just made it up. I have no idea if that's true, but I suspect it's true. It sounds like something that is probably true. So I think that is believable anyway, and believable is a lot of what we're going to go for here on the show, because again, a lot of the people will be writers of fiction, so we can make stuff up. So that's what I'm wearing today. It's clearly tight in places that I'm uncomfortable with, and also some culturally ingrained gender baggage makes me uncomfortable, but I am doing this for you. And so that's, I hope you appreciate that. And in the same way, I'll encourage the guests to wear something that's fun for folks who are watching the show on YouTube, and we'll let people know about how we decided to dress up for the occasion. And then the first thing we'll talk about is, I mean, it's a show about procrastination, right? We're writers who are not writing. So I'm going to talk about, like, for example, my thing would be last night, my son and I watched the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, which was underwhelming. And I am a huge Marvel fan. Like anything, comic booky, nerdy, I'm pretty into. And Marvel is like premium, best nerd, culture out there. And I love it. And yet this piece, the woman who plays Mantis, and somebody will probably write in to tell me what her name is. I could look it up. That would be responsible. But the actor who plays Mantis, she is phenomenal. And just her facial expressions, her voice, she's worth the cost of admission. And there's a good running gag that I won't ruin. But overall, if you miss it, I've already spent too much time on it on this show. Like it's that, which was kind of a bummer. I do worry about who is the target demographic, because they did feel the need to add musical numbers as kind of a throwback to the holiday special idea. Which is something that I think people a little bit older than I am would go, oh, holiday special, it's got to have musical numbers because there were these holiday specials in the 70s, and they are probably not watching Guardians of the Galaxy. And meanwhile, I think everybody my age and younger is going, did we need a musical number in this? Who are these people, singing? Why do we need a music video in the middle of this? And again, that's caused me to spend way more time talking about it than it needs. But it's an odd thing. It's an odd cultural relic. Without knowledge, I believe it is better than the Star Wars holiday special. I have never seen the Star Wars holiday special. Those of you who know about the Star Wars holiday special know that was intentionally hidden because it was so terrible. So I presume this was an improvement, but it rose to the level of mediocrity, which is probably not what they were going for. So that's one you could give a miss. So the next thing that I'll talk about with a guest, who I'm sure will have a far more interesting bit of culture that they want to talk about. Then we'll talk about news that's been distracting us. And so the thing that's been bugging me ever since I saw a video with Herschel Walker doing an interview bragging about why he has played Russian roulette. And I mean, Herschel Walker's existence as a candidate is already offensive. The whole reason that he was run in the first place is, the Republican Party saying, look, we have a black friend. Like it's an insult to everyone's intelligence who is a voter in Georgia. But then the guy they found, and so he's on this show and he's asked about rumors that he plays Russian roulette or has played Russian roulette. And instead of saying, yeah, it was a really stupid, dangerous thing I did that nobody should ever do, that's bad, don't do that, he has this, for him, a relatively coherent response, in that it only went in two directions at the same time. And part of it was the, Jesus protects me kind of stuff, but part of it was this like toxic masculinity. If somebody challenges me, I need to prove that I'm not afraid of anything, and so I'll put a gun to my head and pull the trigger, and then I'll challenge them to do the same thing. And I just was like, people of Georgia, people everywhere, voting is a responsibility, and you're choosing a leader. And you're choosing somebody that you want to emulate, you want to respect. And it reminded me of folks who share my kind of left-leaning ideas, who back in the day being, November or 2 years ago, November, were frustrated with individual candidates and refused to vote. And I remember talking to these folks, and they would say, well, this person disagrees with me on this or that, and therefore I won't vote for them. And it just always floored me. I was like, you are not going to find a candidate who agrees with you on every single thing. And also, you are of voting age, which means you are old enough to run. Like, if you want to find a candidate who agrees with you on absolutely everything, there's a way you could do that. You could run. But if you choose not to run, you're going to have to vote for somebody who disagrees with you about some things. And from the viable candidates, you're going to find one who disagrees with you about less things. But, there are other people in our lives who we want to, instill certain values in, but who also will differ from us, namely our children, right? And if you are choosing a candidate other than yourself, you should choose someone you want your children to be able to admire and emulate, right? I want my son to be able to say, oh, you voted for this person, those values are at least tolerable, right? And somebody sitting around talking about how they play Russian roulette out of this kind of mock bravery that's really fear. I'm so afraid somebody will think that I'm unwilling to do something, that I can be that easily manipulated into doing something incredibly dangerous. I would be appalled if some child in Georgia is looking at their parent and saying, my parent voted for Herschel Walker. I guess Russian roulette is something that is okay in our household. Like, that's horrifying. So that has been kind of just bugging me for days. The people of Georgia are considering somebody who brags about playing Russian roulette. And their alternative is Reverend Warnock, who's like amazing. I mean, he's interesting to me because he is the kind of person who is a person of deep personal faith, and yet his faith motivates him to serve the public rather than trying to instill his particular religious beliefs on the public. And that's something I admire. That's something that makes me admire, all religious people who are like that, who try and evangelize by being excellent examples of how to be a good human being, so that people will say, oh, maybe their religiosity has something to do with that. I'm not a religious person, but I see that and think, that's the way to evangelize. Be a person like Reverend Warnock. And people have him as an option, and they have a guy bragging about playing Russian roulette. I can't with this. So that's the kind of thing I would hopefully not rant about ad nauseum on the actual show. I would have the guest rant about a news story, but those are the kinds of things we would gab about. Because, if Herschel Walker wins, there are going to be plenty of these idiotic stories, until somebody tricks him into playing Russian roulette 6 times. So the next thing we would talk about on the show is a segment I'll call Hobby Horse. No, I won't. That's ridiculously corny. The next section is where I'll ask the writer about what it is they get up to in terms of a hobby that prevents them from getting their writing done. And so one of the things for me is this last summer, I decided to try my hand at sculpture, because I always like to try different arts, and I find that they inform one another, and painting has made me a better poet. And so I thought, what can I learn from sculpture? Learned a lot about planning. Made me a better novelist, in the sense that I learned about planning things out in advance. But the idea behind the sculpture was, I had this dishwasher, and it was broken. It was I put out a kind of an all call. Anybody want the scrap metal? Nobody had taken me up on the thing, on getting rid of it. And I thought, okay, I will try and make something out of this. And I also had a couple of old toilets that were sitting on the side of my house. I'd replaced them. And so my son and I had a lot of fun dropping them into some big plastic trash cans and then smashing them with a sledgehammer. And we smashed up the dishwasher. And then I took all the broken pieces and what I thought would be a few bags of concrete. It ended up requiring like 10 bags of concrete to make this fountain around, using these pieces of porcelain. And I decided to name it. It's the shape of a woman standing, holding up something that will then pour water down because it's a fountain. And the thing that she's holding up is the toilet seat with some holes drilled in it. So the water comes down and she's standing up like defiantly. And so I decided to name the sculpture Rhea Recycled, because the character Rhea from Greek mythology gets a really short shrift. Like, she births the gods, then her husband eats them, then one of her children she manages to hide, and he comes back and dismembers and expels his father. And Rhea, all of this gets like nothing, no lines. I mean, her only act volitionally is to one time hide her last child, Zeus, and the rest of the story is about Zeus and Kronos. And I just feel like Rhea's story is more interesting. We should tell Rhea's story. So I was trying to tell it through this sculpture of this goddess rising up again out of recycled materials. Like, she is she is defying the way that history has tried to get rid of her, like an old dishwasher or a couple of old toilets. So I made this sculpture, and now winter is upon us, and we'll find out if it explodes when it freezes. So there's a little thrill there, because it's got the tubing running through it from the dishwasher that then allows the water to move up to the top of the fountain itself. And I am new at this. I have never made anything like that, a functioning fountain, before. So we will see if Rhea cracks, and she does. It's art, it's learning, it's a fun experiment. But if she survives, then I'm going to add some coats of paint. Right now she just looks like cement in pieces. And I think this next summer, if she makes it to the summer, then I'm gonna paint her and see how that changes her, just for fun. So that's something that that's a hobby that kept me from some of my writing this summer. And we'll see what other writers have get up to that keeps them from their writing as well. Now, at this point in the show, I would then have to have the aforementioned ad break. And because the show is new, we don't have ads yet, till Jack in the Box hires us to do a spot about Doug's cat, Poops and Giggles, and sends us a lifetime supply of jalapeno poppers, and one of those oversized cardboard checks. I'm assuming that's how real advertisers do that. Until that happens, I am just going to have to make up ads. So here's an ad just to kind of let advertisers know how we would do ad copy, so that they get a sense of how it would sound, how well we can advertise for their product. So here's an example. Do you like sports betting? Have you ever wished there were a literary version for writers? Well, now there is. Books is the place where you can place bets on whether the next book by your favorite author will be a hit. Right now, if you use the coupon code Bronte, you get a $25 credit toward your first bet. Then you just search up your favorite author and see what the Vegas odds are on their current work in progress. 10 to 1 it'll be a flop, 100 to 1. If it's a hit, you could win huge cash. So place your bets on Books today. Offer not available in Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Wyoming, and U.S. territories or outside the United States. If you have a gambling problem, so did Fyodor Dostoevsky, Roald Dahl, Edgar Allan Poe, and Ernest Hemingway, and all of them are dead now, so you should seek help immediately. What do you think, Doug? How did that go? Should we record it again? No? Calling it good? Okay, so if advertisers out there would like their product advertised on the show, we could, toss in something like that. Books. Our next thing is going to be a 5-word poetry contest. And so normally I will ask the guest to share their 5-word poetry, line of poetry. What is a line for our listeners to consider for a poem of their own, or just for fun? And so I asked folks on Twitter if they would contribute for the pilot episode, and I got a bunch of good ones. So here are this week's entries into the 5-word poetry contest. The first comes from Karen Eisenbray, a novelist, hopefully will be a guest on the show at some point. Her 5 words: story sings worlds into being. That's a good one. Kate Ristow, also a novelist, I hope to have on the show, author of the Shadow Girl soon-to-be trilogy, writes, "Despite everything, I still choose you." That's 6 words, I just realized. That's 6 words, Kate. Nice try. M.K. Martin, author M.K. Martin, author of Survivors Club. "No stability, but instability everlasting." That's good. That's good, right? Now this next one comes from somebody on Twitter named Adersh, Adersh. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Adersh. "Bury them with your success." Interesting. I wasn't going to share that one because Adersh mostly seems to retweet Elon Musk, who's a douche, but Adersh also retweeted an artist named Maria who goes by dreamfall_art, and she posts cool stuff, so Adersh gets a pass. Thank you, Adersh, for retweeting Maria. And this last one comes from Kelly, who is at Phoenix Lily 425 and is a writer and poet and submitted a whole bunch of really cool ones. And here was my favorite: "Fear complicates love's pure intentions." That's pretty cool. That's a good one. So 5-word poetry contest. If you're interested, submit your 5 words. The next part would be our announcements. The authors, you won't have to hear all about the authors' current work in progress. This is not that kind of show. This is about how they procrastinate, but I do want to hear about one thing they've got going now. So what is something that is already out, or that listeners can check out immediately? So give them a chance to plug their stuff, and then we'll do their idea for a weekly poll. And this will be something we'll put out on Twitter and Facebook through the Not a Pipe Publishing pages, and have the audience vote on it. So our weekly poll this week is going to be: what kinds of writers procrastinate the best? Novelists, poets, screenwriters/playwrights, or journalists? So you define for yourself what is the best kind of procrastination, but who procrastinates the best? Novelists, poets, screenwriters, playwrights, or journalists? And then we will have, next thing up, after that will be a listener question. We don't have a listener question yet because you are the first listeners. You are the first viewers. But if you are interested, you can post one, in the comments. You can connect with us via Twitter at Not a Pipe Publishing, or the best way would be to send an email directly to notapipepublishing@gmail.com. That's Not a Pipe Publishing. It's a reference to the Magritte painting of the pipe, because the point of that painting is about how representations are not the thing in itself, and it's a publishing company. We publish fiction. Get it? It's representational. Okay. So that Notapipepublishing@gmail.com. and submit a listener question. And then I'll ask the guest where they can be found, how people can connect with them. It's kind of obligatory for me. Teacher Gorman, Teacher Gorman on Instagram, Teacher Gorman on Twitter, Benjamin Gorman online. You can search me on whatever. I'm on TikTok and stuff too. So Teacher Gorman. And then the last thing will be a send off, and I will ask the authors for some kind of one-liner. Instead of like one consistent phrase that I'll always use that's clever or catchy or whatever. It's a show about procrastinating, and I haven't gotten around to writing one, so something like, put off for tomorrow that which you would rather not do today. There you go. So thanks to the Zombie Dandies for our intro song, Welcome to the Zombie Coast, which they generously made available free online. Thanks. They don't know me. I don't know them, but I found their song and it worked. But if you are in a band and you would like your song used as the intro and outro, I would love to highlight a listener's work. So email me something better than this song that I just found. I'll see you next week with a guest who will come up with a better end to the show. Thanks, everybody.